In the world of real estate, how is the apartment market doing? How did it do in 2020? What can we expect in 2021? Is this a good time to buy, sell, hold, or refinance? Are values going up or are they going down? How are interest rates going to do? What are they going to do in 2021? And there's been a lot of talk about this wave of foreclosures that's coming in 2021. Is this really going to happen or is it fake news? I'm going to address that here today. If you're someone who is looking to get started in apartment ownership, or if you're already a seasoned investor in the city of Long Beach and you own apartment buildings, you're probably wondering the same thing. Should I buy? Should I sell? Should I refinance? What happened in the market of 2020? I'm Juan, president of Sage Real Estate, your fourplex market leader and the #1 rated apartment broker in Long Beach. Before a broker, I'm also a real estate investor. Before ever getting my real estate license, I was able enough to purchase my first apartment building. And so when I bring you this information, I come to you from a investor landlord perspective, more so than a broker perspective, because I'm just like you, managing my units. I'm a business owner. I deal with tenants and a lot of the maintenance that goes on with an apartment building. And so I hope you find this information valuable today. So how are we going to answer these questions? Well, here at Sage Real Estate, we're committed to following the data. We are tracking the market stats that no one else is tracking. In fact, on our last video, I mentioned that the information that I'm going to be sharing with you, you can't Google. CoStar doesn't follow it. LoopNet doesn't follow it. I know because we've asked them. CoreLogic doesn't follow it. The MLS doesn't follow it. And so we've taken it upon ourselves to keep track of all this information, bring it to you, the fourplex owners in Long Beach, so that you have the tools so that you can make the right decision. So let's get into the data. How did we do in 2020 when it comes to fourplex sales? And so most importantly to everyone out there listening, they want to know about the average sales price. And what's interesting to note that although we had a pandemic that started in the middle of March, we thought the market was potentially going to collapse. What's going to happen if we're not able to buy, we're not able to sell, if we're not able to inspect these properties? There was a lot of concern on what was going to happen. Surprisingly, in 2020, we had a slight increase in the average sales price. The average sales price in Long Beach when it comes to a 4-unit building was $1,165,000, up from $1,155,000 in 2019. So very promising. If you're an apartment owner, the pandemic did not impact your value negatively. There's still much interest out there for asset types like that. Let's talk about how many sold, right? Traditionally in Long Beach, there's been an average of 100 fourplexes that sell every year going back 5 years, okay? In 2020, how many sold? We saw that 82 fourplexes sold in 2020. So a decrease by 16%. Not bad at all from our opinion here, because at the end of the day, there was people that were interested in buying but decided to hold off. And there's a lot of folks out there that we're talking to now interested in selling, and they just wanted to get through the pandemic. They didn't want to disturb the tenants. They wanted to just say, let's be done with this and then we'll consider selling. So had those people not held back, we probably would have had the same amount of sales. So the fact that we've had a decrease is not very concerning to me at this point. Let's talk about days on market. How long is it taking to sell a fourplex in the city of Long Beach? In 2019, the average for days on market for a fourplex was 59 days. And in 2020, surprisingly, even in the middle of the pandemic, that was reduced down to 56 days. So 2 things owners care about is what's my property worth and how long is it gonna take to sell? And so the good thing, looking at 2020, we had a slight increase. Again, the average sales price is $1,165,000. So if your property is better than average, guess what? It's worth more. If it's not quite at average, it might be a little less. And in terms of days on market, how long is it going to take for you to pull your equity out of the building? As of now, it's 56 days on market. As I talk to a few larger apartment owners out there, folks who own multiple buildings in Long Beach, and we look back at the increase in the average sales price from 2016 to 2020, there's been an increase of 34%. So some of these investors will say, hey Juan, 34% is a massive increase. And so for those folks who have held on, congratulations, your property is worth so much more. The question that they have is, Juan, how much more can we go? And that's an interesting question. Again, last year was the smallest increase we've seen in 5 years. And so that might be an indication that maybe, just maybe, we are at the top. There is interest out there from buyers, and the reason we have a lot of interest from buyers is because of the historically low interest rates. And so that's something to consider if you're someone who's thinking that you want to time the market, you want to sell at the top, you want to maximize that equity. This is a time that we need to have that discussion because, again, looking back from 2016 to 2020, 34% increase in your property. And so this might be the time to consider selling. Let's talk about values. If you're an investor, you certainly are hoping values go down. And if you're a seller, you want them to go up. Last year, we had such a small increase in price by 1% that I expect prices to remain stable. And one of the reasons why is because we are somewhat at the top when it comes to values. When it comes to values, we've seen such a massive increase going back to 2016, it's gone up by 34%. Last year, we only saw an increase by 1%. So for this year, I expect from the data from last year for prices to remain stable. So that's both good for both buyers and sellers out there that are participating in the market. Let's talk about interest rates. There's been this fear that interest rates are going to rise and it's going to collapse our market. And what we're hearing from experts is that interest rates are going to remain the same. The pandemic has affected everyone, and I believe the government's doing what they can to stimulate certain portions of the economy. With that being said, they're going to keep interest rates low. If you're a buyer, it's great to have this super low interest rate. And if you're a seller, it opens up because there might be a larger pool of buyers out there because of that are motivated. Let's talk about inventory. Inventory is something that we track that no one else tracks, specific to fourplexes, right? So right now in Long Beach, there's 27 fourplexes for sale. And when we compare that to what happened last year, quarter by quarter, we saw 26, 30, 33. So all in all, there remains really no change when it comes to inventory. We're not seeing this massive increase or a massive decrease, which is quite different than the residential market. So when we're talking about single family homes, and we have a lot of friends who focus on that market, their inventory is super, super low. That does not translate to the fourplex market. Okay, our inventory is stable and has remained that way, and the pandemic didn't really alter that from the data that we're tracking. Let's talk about the market crash. So some of the folks have reached out to us, they've watched our videos, and they're scheduling appointments, and what they think is gonna happen is that they're gonna wait for the market to collapse and apartment owners are gonna give away their buildings and selling them at discounts because of all these laws. And unfortunately, I hate to tell those folks that you're gonna have to be super patient because I just don't see that happening. What happened last year, we had, outside of the pandemic, we've had rent control. Eviction moratoriums means if you're an owner and someone's not able to pay, you cannot get possession of your property. We've had a lot of laws change that kind of impact the way that you own apartment buildings. With all that being said, I don't see apartment owners calling me saying, sell my building, I want out. Now there's a little bit of that, but there's not a lot. And not to mention, I don't expect this crash for one reason and one reason only. How could we ever have a crash when there's a pool of buyers ready to buy these buildings at market value? Okay, when you have a crash is when values have dropped. That's not happened. When you have a crash is when there's no interest. That's not happening. And when you have a crash is when interest rates go up that no one wants to borrow. None of those three scenarios are playing themselves out at this moment. So I expect 2021 to be stable, to be strong, and both positive for both buyers and sellers. As always, here at Sage Real Estate, it is our goal to bring you the right data so that you can make the right decision. If you like this video, make sure to like, share, or subscribe. And if you have any questions, leave a comment below. And as always, every situation is unique. And if you have any specific questions, please feel free to leave a message. There you have it. See you next time.